about the best sex I never had, also known as I am my own cockblock. And I mean, for someone who wrote a show called 52 Man Pickup, right, which is all about sexual experience, obviously, like, it was like this is a hard realization that I came to. But basically, last summer, I went to the Burning Man Festival. Do you guys know Burning Man? Okay, everybody understands, right? I don't have to explain, like, free music, art, booze, sex, drugs, whatever the fuck. It's hippie Vegas, okay? So I went there, and I was in the middle of a particularly dry spell, like, sexually, like, if 2012 was not a good year, you know? And so, like, you know, I was going for like the art and the experience, but also everyone who'd ever been has been like, I mean, you're gonna get laid there. Like, I mean, like, they made it seem like you would just trip over dick like an outstretched leg on a bus, you know? Ready to run into all of it like over and over. So like I'm midweek of the week, and like nary a dick have I seen, you know? And so what had happened is the night before, like the way the city is set up, it's in the desert, it's on a radial, you know? So like, here's 9 o'clock, here's 3 o'clock, I live at 2:45, I was at my friend's place at 8:45 over there, and I'd slept over, and I was making my way slowly back. I ran into another friend, Amy from San Francisco, and we talked like for a half hour. It was like the fun kind of degenerate talk you expect at that festival. And then she was like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm really high on acid right now. And I was like, oh, like I just thought we were both degenerates, but you're like hot. And then I was also kind of like, oh, I wish I'd known. And she's like, do you want some? And I was like, yeah. Because you don't get to write a show called 52 Man Pickup by just saying no, all right? So, you know, like I say yes to things, and I was like, yeah. And then she was like just dumping this little like dropper into my mouth, like, and then she was like, oops, ha ha ha. And so I realized I had an hour to get back to where I needed to go before I was a little acid head gremlin. So like, I just like had to go. And I went with her friend Leslie, and we stopped at 6 o'clock where Leslie was staying in this place called Nectar Village that had all these great things. Like they had dick pops. They had like popsicles shaped like dicks, and like this was especially like, you know, memorable for me because it was like a full, like a perfect 6-inch like curved, beautiful pink, just the way I like them, you know what I mean? So like, you know, I was like, yeah, this dick pop, and like my mouth knew. I was like, yeah, this is pretty good. Like basically the last sex that I had been like a string of guys who had like 4 inches tops if you measure from the asshole, you know what I mean? Which you know they do, right? So it was like so bad, and I was just like, oh dude, you know. And they also had a sauna, and I was like about to like, I was just like starting a trip, and I was like, yeah, I want to get in the sauna. And I was in the sauna for a minute, and I was like, no, I don't want to be in the sauna, you know, because I felt like Hansel and Gretel, like I was plumping while I got cooked, and like I walked outside, so now I'm like naked, high as balls, in the middle of the desert, in the middle of nowhere, and suddenly there's a guy right here, which is what happens when you're a girl and naked in the middle of the desert, high off your ass. And his name was Steve for the purposes of the story, and Steve was like talking to me like normal, like, what do you do? Oh, I do theater too, blah, blah, blah. But like, I can't manage normal, do you know what I mean? Because this thing happens if you've never done a hallucinogen. You have this thing where you have this moments of perfect lucidity where you understand everything and like you feel all the impulses at once. And then, but the thing is, the like through line of the story of reality doesn't connect, so you can't express it. So I'm talking to him, and he's telling me about theater, and I'm saying, yeah, and you're like, I can't, you know, you just, you can't connect. You can't connect is the problem. And I just was like, I'm sorry. And he didn't know why I was apologizing to him in the middle of the conversation. And I just hugged him because that's all I had to give, and I left. And I booked it back for the RV that we were staying in at 2:45. I got there, kicked everyone else out. It was nighttime by now. They were going out to drink. I was just trying to plan my trip. You know what I mean? And I reached the station of the trip where you get trapped. You know, like when you get trapped in a room or in a mood, like you're in the bathroom for 3 hours just thinking the same thought and like wiping yourself over and over for no reason, like you feel dirty, you want to end it. You know, like you get trapped in the mirror. Oh God, that's a human moment right there. And you're just like, you're in the same room for 3 hours looking around for like the other sock, or like an orange or something you desperately need right now, you know? And so like, you know, I was there and I wanted to change my outfit, and I was in the mirror and I got trapped there and I was totally naked. And I had this flashback to the last time I had done acid, which was like more than a decade before in college with my best friend Dave. And we were like laughing and smiling and having a good time. And he was like, I can see your tears. And this isn't like the creepy kind of talk, but he was just like, I can see on your face all of the tears that you've ever cried in your life while you're smiling. And it was just so momentous in that moment because I had cried so many tears, having grown up and, raised by a loveless marriage and being overweight all my life and always thinking that I wasn't worthy of the things that I really wanted and disqualifying myself from those things at the same time. And he saw me in that moment, and in that very moment that I was in the RV, I saw exactly what he saw, and I saw years of tears on me all over my naked body. And I could have gone into that moment, I almost wanted to, but then I looked down and I looked at the wide expanse of flesh that I am, and it was fucking gorgeous. It was just like beautiful cinnamon toasted from the sun. And I looked in my eyes and I'm like, I'm fine. I'm actually fine. Like all of the histories of relationships that I didn't have and the sex I settled for instead, all of that was just fine. It just was something that happened. And I was like, I'm fine. In fact, like everybody needs to see my fine self. So I decided that I was going out topless that night because I was at Burning Man and you was a week of like partially clothed to no clothed people. I was like, I'm going out topless, but it is the desert at night, so it's 40 degrees. So like I put this very scarf on, I turned it into a halter. You can see how covering that is, right? And then I put on a jacket because I'm not a moron. So I was like, I'm going out on my trip. It's gonna happen tonight. And so I went out on my journey, all of 2 blocks. I made it like 5-minute walk, and then I saw this bar. Someone had turned their camp into a bar, and it was like the bar at the end of the street, at the end of the world in a David Lynch film. Like, do you guys know what I'm talking about? That smoky blue neon light and like a weird silence, and only a couple of people. And the bartender was there, and he looked like Harvey Fierstein had fucked Colonel Sanders. You know what I mean? Like he was really gay, really southern, like 45, came out with martini and a little bit of bitterness, and he was just like working it. And and also there was this little like figurine on the bar, and it was like this little plush thing with light up hands. You squeeze the hand, and it would go dun 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 dun. And it would just squeal, and I decided that was my talisman for the night because it was like cute and fat and electric, just like I was that night. We were both rocking that fucking bar, you know what I mean? So I was at the bar, and there are these 2 guys that look like the cast of Y Tu Mama Tambien, yeah, right? They're from Mexico City. There's the one who's like wiry and kind of goofy looking. He doesn't speak very much English, and there's the one who looks like Gael Garcia Bernal, And for the purposes of this story, that's his fucking name, right? So, I'm talking to them and they're really enjoying me. And then I'd forgotten that I wanted to go out topless tonight, and that was the whole point. I was gonna show myself off to the world. So I took off my jacket and everyone was like, whoa! It's like the same response that the guys have at the beginning of an episode of Law and Order where they discover the body and they're like, damn! They're like, whoa! And I was like, let's not act like you guys haven't been looking at topless women all week. And they're like, yeah, okay, fine, right. So but seriously, I was not topless for 2 minutes when there was a guy right here, right? It wasn't Steve this time, it was this other guy named Eric, and this guy was totally the epitome of every kind of guy I attract, right? He was big and not quite fat and not quite skinny. He was just kind of I'm never that and the back knee. I'm not getting down on fat people, obviously, but he was just the kind of guy who was just whatever you want me to be, you're such a goddess. And every woman, when you get that, you kind of throw up from your womb. You know what I mean? Just fucking nut up. Do you know what I mean? He had rainbow dyed hair and that goatee that guys grow when they can't get any pussy. They're just gonna grow one on their face. And it's they look at a lot while they're looking at you. And it's right? I can't go away. And he was cock block supreme because he just darted between me and the guys from Mexico City. He was like, you're so beautiful, you're a goddess. He was just King Kong and my dick out of the sky. Just bam, bam. Every time they were talking to me, he was talking to me. And then at some point, he just started sucking on my tits. And I was high as a fucking kite, right? So I was disconnected from the fact that I might feel embarrassed or weird about this. I was just whatever, I'm a goddess, suck my fucking tits, And also, I still had the nerve in me to be this feels good until I decide what to do with this, keep doing what you're doing. So he was doing that, and I was like, okay, you're annoying me, I need to get a drink. So I go to the bar, I ask the bartender for a drink. The bartender's kind of like, you know, oh, he's such a great guy, I can tell he's really into you, this is really gonna be good for you, like he's so great, you should really go with him. And then he was over here like, you're such a goddess, I wanna be with you, such a god. And I was like, can I get a drink? And the guy was like, what do you want to drink? And he's like, a mango punch. You know, I said that to him and he was like, you know, he's such a great guy, you know, you should really be with him, like he's he's going through a dark path, but he's really wonderful. And he was like, oh my God, I wanna suck on your titties, you're so high, you're so high. And I was like, can I get a drink? And it was like, he's like, yeah, what do you want? Mango punch. And it was like, yeah, you know, yeah, he's such a great guy, you really should go. And I was like, we're in a loop. And he was like, what do you want to drink? And I was like, mango punch. And he was like, he's such a great guy, you know, he's really just having a hard time. And then he's like, oh, I want to be sucking your teeth. And I'm like, we're in a loop. And then we did this several times, right? Until Gael over here squeezes the little hand up, dun, 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 dun. And I was like, yes, we're in a loop. And he was like, yep, we are. And I was trying to get to him, but this guy was feeling up on me, and I couldn't overcome what I wanted for what I had, and I was willing to settle for this. And the sun was coming up, and Gael was going away, and I realized that this guy, Eric, was also on acid that night. It was his first time, and then I turned into like mother instead of like sex being, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna take care of you, and everything's good, right? So then I finally make it back home, you know, like it's noon. I'm like passing out. I wake up sometime that evening, and I was like, God damn it, like I could fucking kill myself right now. Like Gael Garcia Bernal, we could have been having sex in the sand with his friend even. Like I was ready for all of it. And it wasn't like I was gonna kill myself, but it was just that thing where you realize, like, what's the point of living if I keep doing the same fucking thing over and over again? Like instead of going after the thing I wanted, I went with what was here because it was comfortable, and I felt like, oh, I wanna please everyone and take care of everybody. And it's been 6 months since that time, and I realized it wasn't because I wanted to please everyone and take care of everybody. It was because I was afraid of getting what I wanted and asking for what I wanted, you know, and claiming that and being that and saying, no, I don't want you. So I was at this show last week, I was seeing some theater, and I see this guy that I recognize, and I was like, hey, do I know you from the desert? Like, I didn't want to say, do I know you from Burning Man? Because he would be like, no, crackhead, I don't want to buy drugs, you know? And like, if it wasn't him. So it was like, he was like, yeah, and it was Steve, the guy from the sauna, actually, who just had disappeared, and then there he was. And we were talking, we like, you know, exchanged numbers to like hang out because he does theater, he's doing a show. And then I got home and he was like, you know, I'm really attracted to you. And I was like, you know, and I didn't do anything about it for like several days as I was being like, he's probably just a freak show like the other guy, and it's the same type, and I'm always doing the same thing. I'm in a loop. And I started thinking about, you know, when you go on a date with someone, you know, especially as women, you start thinking about how their last name sounds with yours, like, you know, what the sex is gonna be like, you know, how he's gonna use your pants, like the whole fucking thing, you know. And then I started to think like, oh my God, like I can't be with him, like he's gonna see me like this in my underwear, in the mess of my room, in the mess of my life, like he's going to know everything. And then I realized why I've had 52 sexual partners and not one relationship in my life, because I'm the one who's holding back and afraid. So I said, yeah, why don't we go out on Friday? So we are gonna go out this Friday, and for whatever it's worth, I'm just hoping that I do something new.